How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks and we focus on one thing. Always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about Palantir, which was up almost 10% on the day. If you guys remember from my previous video that I just released, I think it was over on the weekend or maybe it was on Monday. I know we had the long weekend and so forth. I said it has a gap that needs to be filled right around $9.40. Where did we see a high today? At $9.39. I want to make sure you guys are prepared going into tomorrow. I won't waste any more time. Let's jump into the agenda. If you're new to this channel, I just want to let you know we have timestamps down below inside the description. But if you're a shareholder, you're thinking about taking a position, I highly suggest you watch this full entire video. So the first thing we're going to go over is the technical analysis. We're going to be taking a look at the overall price action. We want to know support. We want to know resistance. We want to know what it looks like in the bearish case scenario and as well as in the bullish case scenario. And then we're going to be going on Fintel, taking a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information. And the reason why this is important because it does have an impact on the way the stock performs. And then we're going to be taking a look at the order flow distribution. We want to know the buying and the selling behavior on the retail side and as well as on the institutional side. And then when all of that is done, we'll be going into the final thoughts and as well as some more details. So let's get to it. So we're going to do a technical analysis for Palantir. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $9.28, being up 9.65%. On the low, it tested $8.46, and then on the high, testing $9.39. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you could see we traded at 41.275 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 37.685 million shares. So we had above average volume on the day, and it's part of the reasons why we saw some strength in the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is a daily chart, you can see from the RSI down below, it's at 51.27. And then when we take a look at our moving averages, we are below the 200-day. We're also below the 50-day, but we did close above the 21-day EMA, which is at $8.84. So if you remember in my last Palantir video, I was telling you that we have a gap that needs to be filled to the upside right here around $9.40. We ended up seeing a high at $9.39. So we have some strength in the markets for tomorrow. Then I can see Palantir finally filling in this gap. So we're just looking for a 1 cent move and then being able to make a move further. Then we want to see if we can get past $10. We know that $10 is a psychological area for this play, but it also does a great job breaking it out of the downtrend that it's in. Keep in mind, it tested a 52-week low back on May the 13th when it was trading at $6.44. So it has gained a lot of momentum. If we decide to have some consolidation now and we don't have a move up to break through that $10 area, then I'd want us to stay above the 21-day EMA, which is at $8.84. We ended up seeing a low of $8.46. So potentially we could visit this area if it's a rough day inside of the market, but at least you'll be prepared. But if we break through $8.46, the lowest I can see Palantir going is maybe around $8.30. But for the most part, definitely bullish on this play if we see some strength in the markets going into tomorrow. Now let's move on to the short interest information. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for Palantir. As we scroll down on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So when we take a look at the recent filings for June the 2nd, we have a closed position from Sheaf Brock Investment Advisors LLC, which was calls, and we have Verichin Fund Management LLC that purchased 30,465 shares. And then we go down further. Let's take a look at the 31st. So we have Westmark Growth Fund that purchased 73,201 shares, and we have Blackstone Alternative Investment Funds with a short position of 12,200 shares. And I'm pretty sure I covered the rest on the previous video. Now, when we take a look at the short interest, the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 51.69%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 7.91 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 10 million, updated 1 minute ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 0.25%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 31st, it is at 55.62, and then for the close of the 1st, it is at 51.69. 0.9. So that is a significant decrease right there. And then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 7.54%, unfortunately, Palantir doesn't have short squeeze potential. Now let's move on to the order flow distribution. Now let's take a look at the order flow distribution for Palantir. So we see on the inflow, it is at 54.01 million, and then on the outflow, it's at 52.35 million. So it had an inflow day. Taking a look at the breakdown, on the large, it was 0.93 million. On the medium, it was 36.24 million, and then on the small, it was 16.84 million. Taking a look at the outflow side, you can see on the large it is 0.86 million, on the medium it is 35.25 million, and then on the small it is 16.24 million. Taking a look at the large scale orders in the last 5 days, you can see for today, June the 2nd, we had an inflow of 0.07 million, and on the 31st we had an inflow of 1.93 million. So over the past 5 trading days, we've had 3 inflow days. Taking a look at the small scale orders that tends to represent the retail side, you could see that we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at what happened on the medium, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at the large, represents whales, institutions, and funds, we had more buying than we had selling. And then when we take a look at the turnover ratio, it is at 2.02%. So this is not too bad for a stock like Palantir. And the one thing that we are seeing with the strength in these markets and along with the catalyst that I'll be talking about inside of the final thoughts, it is going in a direction where we want it to go. Now let's go into the final thoughts and we'll go over some more details as well. So for my final thoughts for Palantir, before we start talking about the price action, let's go over the recent catalysts that came out today. So here it is. Why is Palantir stock up 10% today? Today, Palantir announced the U.S. Space Systems Command has awarded the company with an additional $53.9 million for its existing national security contract. This increases on top of an existing $121.5 million contract, bringing the value of Palantir's work to more than $175 million for this client alone. As a major player in the big data space, part of Palantir's allure has been the company's close connections with big government agencies. As far as revenue stability is concerned, this plays significantly into the company's bull thesis. Indeed, this is data as a service company has become a meme stock in its own right, surging during last year's impressive rally. So outside of the last part that I just read, Palantir is definitely doing what it needs to do to deliver value to shareholders. They're continuing to grow their business. And we do know they make a lot of money off of government contracts. So seeing that they are continuing to grow their revenues in this sector is definitely a good look, and it's part of the reasons why we see a lot of excitement coming into the stock. And for the second catalyst, which I just came across when I was putting the portion of this video together, is a big one. So here it is. So Palantir CEO Alex Karp met with Zelensky in Ukraine. Ukrainian Vice Prime Minister says Karp is the first CEO to visit since the Russian invasion. Alex Karp, the Chief Executive Officer of Palantir Technologies, visited Ukraine and met with President Vladimir Zelensky to discuss ways his technology could help the country resist the continuing Russian invasion. So this is definitely some great news right here. And I love the fact that Alex Karp is putting himself out there to grow this business. Again, this brings value to shareholders and it does bring a lot of attention to the company as well. But again, we're going to have to wait, get some more details and see how this turns out. But one thing that is for sure, Alex Karp is working his butt off and shareholders should be excited about that. Now let's talk about the price action. So Palantir ended up seeing a high at $9.39. I was talking about in my previous video that it has a gap that needs to be filled at $9.40. And I was saying, look out for strength inside of the markets. But since it did have these catalysts that came through, ended up pushing up there very quickly. And I know many of you are excited about that. I also saw some comments on my previous video saying, hey, we need a Palantir update. But aside from that, where do we want Palantir to go? So we want to see it go to $10. So this is going to be a psychological area for the play. So if we continue to have strength inside of these markets, I don't see any reason reason why whatsoever Palantir can't get to 10 bucks. But will it stay there is another question. But as far as going into next week, if it can finish as close to $10 as possible, maybe around $9.70 and so on, things can get very interesting. But one thing that we want to remember though, it needs to hold above the 21-day EMA. It has done a consistent job doing that for this week, and that's part of the reasons why we see a lot of bulls wanting to step in. And if you don't know what the 21-day EMA is, it's at $8.84. Also, when we went on Fintel taking a look at the recent institutional ownership, we do see some activity, but not a lot. And then taking a look at the short interest information, Palantir doesn't have short squeeze potential whatsoever. And we talked about why that was the case. There's a lot of shares that are outstanding. There are not enough shorts in this play to force a short squeeze, but of course you guys already know that if you checked my previous video. But overall, we want to see Palantir continue to gain some momentum. And those price levels that I gave you, again, keep an eye on 835. If it breaks through 835, it will show a lot of weakness. But we can't forget the fact it did show support today at 846. So this could be an area that can continue to hold. And if we're able to form a higher low going into next week, that's why I said things can look very interesting for this play. And $10 is a psychological area, so add that to your notes as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see how the stock performs going into tomorrow. We'll talk soon.